Good afternoon, viewers. This is my new camera, and I'm taking this opportunity to do a little vlog, like the normal big boy YouTubers do. So, a question I have been getting a lot, posed in both nice and mean ways, is why do I hide likes on my YouTube videos? And why specifically the essays as well? Like, leave the likes on in the albums, but not on the essays. Well, it's not to get rid of any sort of dissent that I might end up being exposed to. That's not what it's for. I get the likes and the dislikes. It's still functional. It's hiding them, not disabling them, as many people say. I can still see exactly how many dislikes a video gets. And I can get the pithy amount of feedback that you get from that. So it's not for any reason like that, like any of the shitlords would have you believe. It's actually because I don't think any of you really need to see that information. Like, what it means is that someone's raid is working. Like, that's the feedback that you get. Like, if it has a lot of dislikes, it means your raid is working. And I don't think I need to give you that consolation. That's not my responsibility. You can find out for yourself. And the other reason, like, if I do get raided, what happens is that big old dislike bar, it colors first impressions, like I hide it so you can make up your own mind, I want to encourage just a bit of a conversation, which is again why I leave the comments on, because I like comments. I think forcing someone to actually verbalize their distaste for my content instead of just clicking a button, actually type it out, is healthy. It'll get the mind wheels turning, and it has nothing to do with how much hate the video gets. The likes are hidden as soon as it goes up. You're gonna have to take my word for it, but the funny games video I just put up is very, very warmly received, and the likes are still hidden on that one. I think it's kind of funny, because the people on the other side, they like to frame it like I'm a coward, like I'm censoring dissent. But I can still see it. It's not for me. It's not for me to be shielded from any kind of criticism, because I can still see it. You dummies. Next topic. My first video that got semi-popular was my experience with Undertale, and it's an okay video. It's too long. It didn't need to be that long. It could have been like 75% of the length, especially if I cut out the entire first 10 minutes where I try to pretend that I know how games work. That's just the entire first 10 minutes of that video is superfluous. But the part that I really want to lean in on is like the last couple of minutes, because that's the only part that anyone cares about, is the part where I trash the soundtrack. That part could have been handled way better. I realize now that the only opinion I really had about the soundtrack was that I felt it was insincere, it made the game worse, and everyone else seems to like it, and I was like I was definitely trying to cause a ruckus, calling it the worst thing ever made for any game. Like, I was intentionally overplaying my dislike for it, which was not a good idea. But also, like, a lot of the things I said to defend my opinion were kind of absurd, and things that, like, thinking back, I don't even think I thought back then. Like, when I bring up Boards of Canada and talk about how they put up so much work into making their drum machines sound so squishy, and they do. But I don't know who I'm fooling, because I release an album once a month. That was silly. Really, what it comes down to, like, my complaints for why I dislike chiptune were entirely pulled out of my ass. Like, I knew I hated it. I knew every time I heard chiptunes in an indie game soundtrack, it started making my blood boil, but I did not know why. I was trying to figure it out, and I didn't quite figure it out then. Now I think I have actually figured it out. Like, this is a new theory for why the Undertale soundtrack kind of ticks me off a bit. If you're using chiptunes, if you're limiting yourself to chiptunes, or sound font stuff like Toby Fox did, you're already hampering yourself. You're putting yourself at a disadvantage. And that, that's what art is all about. It's overcoming limitations. Like, people say that limitations breed creativity, but it's a bit more complicated than that. Like, you don't just become more creative just by limiting yourself. Like, I'm gonna make an album using the sound of a goat sneezing and Donald Trump speeches. If I did that, it wouldn't automatically become a great album just because I limited myself so fiercely. What people mean when they say that limitations breed creativity, or at least what I mean, is limitations act as an inspiration to work past those limitations. Like, if you limit yourself sound design wise by saying that you'll only use chiptune, you have to focus way more on the composition of it. And that's where I think a lot of these indie game soundtracks falter, is they take the sound design and just roll with it and continue making boring as all hell melodies. Like that's how I feel about the soundtrack for V6 Times. It's the most shiny, sterile piece of shit I've ever heard. I really dislike that soundtrack. And especially, like, VVVVV is not... It's not a very cute game. Like, it's kind of dismal aesthetically. Like, I heard something about the enemy sprites being based off of dreams the developer had or something. Like, it's kind of a spooky game, like, visually. It's empty and kind of surreal, and there's that big elephant in the room, and if you stay in it too long, your character starts crying. Like, if I scored it, it would have been a lot spookier. But that's the complaint, is that there is a lot more to love about early game soundtracks than their sound, than the actual chips. And this is specifically what I was exploring on my album Nostalgia, with the plane on it. I was exploring the songwriting and the, like, sort of emotional aesthetic of early video game soundtracks, but without actually using any pulse waves. And people perceive that album as being a chiptune album, despite it being completely foreign to the concept of chiptune, sound design wise at least. So that was a good experiment. I think it's my best album this year. I think it's not to my own horn, but it's pretty good. But while we're on that note, the other complaints that I made about the soundtrack are completely valid. I just didn't explain them very well. Like, I do think that the Undertale soundtrack uses leitmotifs in an extremely obnoxious way. But I didn't come up with enough examples. Like, Hopes and Dreams as Real Boss Fight is only one example. The other big one is the Undying fight, which is the Ruins theme sped way up, and it's like, you didn't think about how awkward it would sound if you just take this melody that is sort of languidly gliding along when you're in the ruins and then just making it smaller. It's just every time a huge amount of a melody is quoted and it just rings out into my head that I've heard it before. Like, it's not trying to be subtle about it at all. It makes me tense up a little bit. It makes the annoyance centers in my brain go off. And I should have mentioned this, because like that specific part where Hopes and Dreams quotes Your Best Friend, and it makes sense because Asriel is Flowey, they're the same person. That they figured out how to translate that leitmotif successfully in the Omega Flowey fight in the last part of that. When it goes dee 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 dee, like that little melody change makes it work for me. I thought that was a much more effective use of it. And also the other thing that I didn't go through enough detail on is the structure of the songs. The way so many of the boss themes, especially, they just feel like blocks of different different movements that just don't feel like they go together at all, or they aren't, there's no effort made into transitioning between them, or more importantly, transitioning from the end back into the beginning when it loops. I should have mentioned the one time that it succeeds in this, and that being Death by Glamour, the Metaton fight. I feel like that track really has a story that it tells, that the different sections feel natural going into each other, and more importantly, it loops back into itself in a very satisfying way. That's probably my favorite boss theme in the entire thing. Asgore is almost up there, because I like how it kind of it does a double escalation at the beginning. There's the do when it starts, but then it's like you think that's the thing, but then it goes do, and it's like suddenly like a second escalation after the first escalation, and I love it. That's great. That's an excellent moment. But then it incorporates the friggin' Toriel leitmotif, and I hate it suddenly. That's all I can think of. So you almost got it. Third topic. We're going a bit more recent this time. Bit more closer to the present. My video about getting over it with Bennett Foddy. It's my best video. It's so far the only video that I've made that I didn't immediately hate after uploading it. Like, I'm very proud of it. I wanted to reiterate on some of the criticisms I had with Celeste, and like other people's responses to that part of the video when I was criticizing Celeste. Apparently everyone thinks I hate that game. I don't. It's one of my favorite games of all time. It's like the actual craft of the level design is completely impossible to ignore, like how that was able to exist. Like everyone reacted very negatively to me saying that Celeste should have been a bit more punishing. That it should have used its mechanics to tell its story a bit more effectively. And a lot of people said that it's for people with mental illness like Madeline. It's for, and to make it more punishing would be cruel to those people. And I think that's a bit of an absurd complaint, because there's already the assist mode, which is probably the best way that they could have dealt with that. Like, it's perfect. How it's framed, how it opens the story up for more people, because like that's the big difference between Celeste and Getting Over It, is that Celeste has something to offer that's very concrete outside of its gameplay, which is why Celeste should have an assist mode while Getting Over It doesn't need one, because Getting Over It, if there's no challenge, then the game is nothing. You might as well just watch someone play it if you can't beat it. So making the game more punishing for people who want to have that experience of Madeline persevering through this unpleasantness, it wouldn't make the game worse for people who need the assist mode, and like not even a little bit. And the other thing is that Getting Over It being my favorite game of all time doesn't mean I need every game to be more like Getting Over It. It was specifically Celeste that I think could have had a stronger integration between mechanics and story. Because while Getting Over It is my favorite game, my second favorite game is The Beginner's Guide, which is just it's a walking simulator. There's no gameplay outside of walking around and experiencing the story being told at you. And that's my second favorite game. So no, I do not want every game to be extremely punishing. I just think that Getting Over It is a case for using punishment as deliverance of meaning, and it does this in the simplest way possible. And a lot of people went at me for saying that Celeste should be more punishing, but ignoring the golden strawberries. But, of course, there's a limit. There's a limit to everything. You can go too far. The golden strawberries are astronomical levels of punishing. Like, they're more punishment than most video games could ever give you. And if you go that far, then you just end up making breaks in the story. Like, that level of punishment would just completely break the pacing. But what I really should have done is come up with more examples for what I think Celeste should have done with its mechanics. Like more areas where there are long rooms, high stakes, Like, there are some places where they nail this, like the very end of Chapter 3 does this very well. But my favorite part of the game is Chapter 5, the Mirror Temple, because it feels like the only place in the game that isn't just letting me finish it. It has a lot of friction to it because it's a bit of a maze. It's a bit of a crapshoot whether you're gonna find the right way through it the first time. And that makes sense because Madeline doesn't know the way. She's never been here. Why should you? Why should you know the way through it right away? And this, like, and that moment is out of character for Celeste. Like, that's the only moment where it feels like the mechanics are serving the story. Like, and the biggest lost potential is Chapter 6, where you fall all the way back to the bottom of the mountain, and the game just keeps on going. It might as well just be higher up. Like you're just playing the game more. It doesn't feel like you've lost any progress. I came up with this idea after the video went out, by the way. Like, I think that Chapter 6 should have used the limited dashing mechanic from Chapter 8. It should have, like, given you one dash to use, and then you have to get a replenished crystal. This would have made the chapter be relentlessly sluggish and frustrating, and I think it would have worked. I think it would have been great, and it makes more sense from a narrative point of view than like, oh, you're close to the heart of the mountain, so you lose your power or whatever. And it'll make a greater sense of contrast when you finally find the part of you and reconcile with the dark parts of yourself. And then you have 2 dashes that you can use whenever you want, and it'd be this big, like, shackles have been unchained from you. So that's how I would have done it. I should have thought a bit more before I put the video out, but maybe it would have made it too long. I don't know. But one more thing I want to say. I'm not going to call him out by name, but I want to know what kind of mental state you have to be in to watch 30 minutes of me talking about this game that has essentially become my self-help Bible. Like getting over it with Bennett Foddy, like, kind of changed my life, and I give this heartfelt speech at the end, like where I speak in this lovely inspirational tone, and I nail it. You know, again, not to toot my own horn again, but yes, I'm tooting my own horn on that. I nailed the last 5 minutes of that video. How do you watch that and then leave a comment that says, it's really a shame to see people finding joy in this game? It's really a shame to see people find joy. How do you get into the headspace where you say that? It got to me more than I'm willing to admit. So, like, to see someone react that poorly and say it's really a shame to see people find joy in this game because the game itself seeks to spread misery. Like, did you watch the video? Like, you say you did, but I'm having trouble believing that for some reason. I don't know. So you know who you are, and if you've seen the comments, you know who it is. Like, don't harass them. This is all you need. This is all they need to rethink rethink everything. Rethink your life, please. Patrons are not paying for this. Just wanted to test out my new camera. Get some thoughts out there. Love the world. It's really a shame to see people find